Hi, this is Randall here in Texas.
And I'm Matt here in Michigan. Randall and I are continuing to look back at some summertime classic films, and today we're talking about I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's a 1997 film, and it stars Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Ryan Philippe, Freddie Prince Jr., and this film is directed by Jim Gillespie. This film is also written by Kevin Williamson. He's also the writer for Scream, the other big 90s slasher revival movies.
This film came out on just a $17 million budget and ends up grossing close to $126 million worldwide. But despite all of the obviously lucrative money that it made, it came out to very, very mixed reactions, but it was pretty well liked by people who enjoyed slasher films. And like Matt mentioned, Scream is right there, and I Know What You Did Last Summer is right there as the revivalists slasher films. This film really still has a lot of is it good or isn't it good today, so we thought it'd be good to take a look back at it, see what we think of it as a movie. But I didn't understand that Matt had never seen it before, so Matt, having never seen I Know What You Did Last Summer, what do you think upon your first viewing of it?
Yeah, definitely interesting. I mean, you talk about how you've seen it before, and this was a movie, if you grew up, in the area of the 90s and stuff, we all heard of this movie, especially the actors and stuff in it. And that's the first thing you notice when you watch them, like, oh, I know that person. Oh, I know that person. Oh, I know that person. But, before this movie, they weren't big names yet. This was kind of a movie that helped push them on as a slasher movie or as a horror movie or movie in general. To me, it's okay. I think it would have been better if I saw it when it first came out, but seeing some of the modern horror films and stuff, I don't know that this one would stand up with the modern films or with the '80s slasher films.
Speaking of this movie from a plot perspective, it has a very similar plot to what you would expect from a lot of those 80s movies. Like, here we have the four main characters. They're done with their high school careers. They go on and they accidentally hit some guy, and there's the off parodied someone out the sky roof, or sorry, the sunroof of a car. That pretty much comes from this film. It is just like the pretty young actors in a slasher film. Very much that 1980s feel, but I think that this film does better than a lot of those 1980s does to bring a little bit of seriousness into it, a little bit of more characterization than just these are pretty people. That doesn't mean it's particularly great or fantastic or has the best acting, but there are definitely parts of it that I enjoyed going back and rewatching. For one, I really thought like the guilt just boiling up inside of all of them from what they did. You see that, and it gets to the point like where we had these four high school friends who can't even stand to be around each other anymore. The guilt's just eating them alive, knowing that they didn't report it, that they just tried to hide this murder, as it were, of this person that they just ran over. You wouldn't see that in a 1980s slasher film.
Now, Randall and I are going to talk about spoilers in this one. This movie's been out for 23 so years, so we're going to get into spoilers in this for sure. But what that you're talking about, how because of this event, they are estranged. They were best friends. Sarah Michelle Gellar's character actually points that out to Jennifer Love Hewitt's character, like,
What happened between us? We used to be best friends.
so this event made them away from each other. Yet somehow Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. get back together at the end, and even though their two other friends have been horrifically murdered, they can act as if nothing ever happened. So I think it's kind of interesting that the guilt of possibly killing somebody and then dumping their body put their whole life into spin. Yet when their own friends are brutally murdered by something, they can go back and be all happy dory at the end.
I mean, if we're just skipping all the way to the end, really, the person they thought they had killed, he lived through the accident and he ends up being the killer with the hook. And this is just kind of a play on the urban legend of the hook, uh, which totally doesn't have its own movie anywhere. There's definitely not another 1990s movie named Urban Legends. That wouldn't happen, right? I see what you're saying. Like, oh my god, that's fine. They're back together now. No one cares. Everything's happy. Everyone's happy except for the dead people. And the weight of it is no longer on their characters because they are like, you know what? Not only didn't we actually kill him, he just came back and tried to murder all of us. And that's not like making it right or wrong, but at the same time, that's what the movie's trying to say. Like, they no longer have a guilty conscience.
I think for me, the biggest problem I had with this movie is I didn't connect with any of the characters or actually feel sympathy for any of the characters except for Max, who is killed, and I don't know why Max is killed. I guess it was just to mess with Jennifer Love Hewitt's character, but he's just working. He's just murdered, even though he was the one that was accused of sending them all the letters.
I think Max, who's played by Johnny Galecki in this of Big Bang Theory fame,
and Roseanne,
and Roseanne, yes, I think that he's killed off by the hook killer because it sends the message that you guys are wrong. You're totally wrong. It's not Max. He was the only other person at the scene. Basically, he drove by and they pretended that, one of them just had too much to drink and he was just upchucking. The killer wanted to send that message to Matt, to the all four friends. It's not Max, But in reality, what really happened is that behind the scenes, they wanted a death earlier in the film to show that there was actually danger for the main characters. That was actually a reshoot. They filmed that. In the original script, Max's character survives. So I think, honestly, it added to the film. It was a very good idea to go back and reshoot that and have that scene.
Max was only one of the only good, characters, I would say. Well, for me personally, they make fun of him and stuff at the beginning, and that's why, I guess, the main characters I didn't really care for.
Yeah, you see, that's the thing about really good horror films, and I'm not going to say that this is a great horror film, or even that it is. I kind of think of this movie more as a whodunit. You're just trying to figure out through the entire thing who that real killer is. But if you can't sympathize with your main characters, you can't sympathize with who's being offed, then it's really not doing its job. Like Ryan Felipe's character in this, he's just, swear alert, he's an asshole. And not in a good way. I feel no remorse when his character is killed. I'm just like, finally, thank God. Freddie Prinze Jr. for all of his fame and fortune, he does a crap acting job in this. Definitely near the end when him and Jennifer Love Hewitt's character get back together, there's a terrible scene, and you're just like, wow, could that delivery have been any more wooden?
I'm sorry I didn't tell you, but I wanted you back.
Seriously. You're supposed to be in love with this woman.
I think Freddie Prinze Jr. had one look through the entire film. He's like Derek Zoolander.
They're the same face! Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
One look, no matter what's going on, he has the same facial expression. And that one scene where we find out that he's a fisherman, he is the only fisherman that's not wearing rain jacket and stuff. Instead, he has this black tank top on and nice hair.
It is funny. It is that 1990s trope of some of these characters. The parents don't really care. They're just too beautiful, almost too gorgeous. One of the things that I noticed really early on is when it jumps ahead to the next summer, Jennifer Love Hewitt's character is done with her first year in college, and she's supposed to be a very smart girl. And they don't beat that into you, but they mention it a couple of times to let you know that she's not just your average person in this fishing village, basically. And they've done a really good job with her makeup, where you start looking at her hair's all strung out. She's just got done with her freshman year in college, so that's obviously stressful, all the guilt that's playing on. But then 2 scenes later, they did a great job from here to here, but then from here down, it's just Jennifer Love Hewitt, and you're like, because they just put her into a sexy tank top with a midriff and low-rise jeans, and you're like, okay, that's just Jennifer Love Hewitt. Yeah, sure, her face looks like she's been through hell, but the rest of her just looks normal. And I'm like, man, that's really off-putting, because you did such a good job on one thing, but you didn't care to bring it through for the rest of the character.
That's one thing too. I don't know if it's more of the horror genre that we get that, or it's the 90s movie. I think both. Hey, in horror films we have this look, or in 90s films everyone looks the same.
Yeah, but there's a couple of things that I do genuinely enjoy about this film, especially upon rewatching it. It's been a long time since I had seen it, and I was kind of like, I didn't remember who the actual killer was. I remember it's not anyone in the main four, but I couldn't remember who the killer was. And so I thought the movie did a really good job of like stringing the audience along to the point where you don't really know what's going on or who did it, especially after they kill Max off. So I think it does a really good job from that perspective, from a suspense perspective of, again, the who did it mystery of this film.
It does have kind of like questions like, well, is it Max? Because Max was the one that kind of saw them. And then they even go to Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character like, well, could it have been Freddie Prinze Jr.? Is he messing with us since we didn't keep in contact and stuff with him over the year? So it was interesting. I did like how they weaved that together. How it came at the end, I had to kind of go back and try to piece it together. I'm like, all right, this guy is related to this person, and he actually did this, so he is a bad guy, and they didn't actually kill him, so... But yeah, for the most part, it's not like they just sprung everything at the end. They did build up to it, and I did like that about the film.
Yeah, and whereas like Scream, which is again the same writer as this film, is really making fun of those 1980s horror tropes and slasher films, this film isn't really trying to make fun of it. It's not trying to be self-aware. It is really just a kind of fun summer slasher film to watch and hopefully enjoy. Now, if you're not one who enjoys kind of wooden, terrible acting, it's probably not for you. But if you just kind of get past that, I think the story is kind of interesting and fun to watch still. Really, the one thing I can say about this film is that after it was done, I desperately needed a Diet Coke, Matt. Desperately.
Just gonna go over to this fridge and open it up and do the slow pour.
Yeah. Granted, I probably won't drink it after I pour it, but that's not the point.
Well, Randall and I want to know what you guys think of I Know What You Did Last Summer. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out and then come and comment. If you like this video, be sure to give us a like and a subscribe to see more videos. We got a ton more summer movies, so be sure to check those out to see those reviews. And be sure to check us out on Facebook. We'll let you know a day before what's going to be coming out next. For now, I'm Matt, here in Michigan. Have a good day.
And I'm Randall here in Texas. See everyone later.
Next time on No Market Media. Please consider checking out some of our other videos.